technology, engineering, and mathematics learning. Currently, her primary client is the National Center for Women in Information Technology, also known as NCWIT, right? Where she manages their Aspire IT initiative to provide funds to high school and college women to teach computer science to K-12 girls. Katie's career has focused on engaging girls in the exploration of STEM through informal educational venues. Katie has served on the National Girls Collaborative Project Champions Board and as an advisor for Boston's public broadcasting. She has also managed relationships and programs with organizations such as NASA, Society of Women Engineers, and FIRST. Most recently, she worked with Science Club for Girls, a nonprofit in the Boston area, to help grow their program and improve their internal structures. Prior to entering the youth development full-time, Katie was a staff marine scientist for Science Applications International Corporation, where her primary responsibility was survey work related to dredge material monitoring, including geotechnical and bathymetric data analysis. She has also worked on software development project teams, global information systems projects, environmental impact studies, and the implementation of technology to monitor dredge material dumping activities. All right, so I'm going to jump right in, and I've talked with the panelists. They're all welcome to answer all questions. Some may pass, as somebody else may have said what they were going to say anyway. But again, if you have questions at any point, please just get my attention. We want to make sure that you have an opportunity to ask as many questions as you like. So I'll start, and we'll start right on the end here with you, Katie. Can you briefly describe what you left MMA with besides a valuable diploma and/or license?
So I think what we've all discussed today several times that we left MMA with is a strong community behind us, and every time anyone is at any alumni event, you realize just how strong that community is. And then more specifically on the technical side of things, I left school with a really strong understanding of ship systems. So I'm an engineer and I work for the Navy, and a lot of my counterparts who are mechanical engineers who started at the same time as I didn't have that understanding of ship systems. So a lot of the stuff we were learning when we had our first class, like an intro class when you start your job, is Submarine 101. So understanding all the systems on the ship and how they work. And for me, is sort of, we've gone over this, we've been on the ship and seen a lot of this auxiliary equipment already and taken it apart already. And for the mechanical engineers who didn't have such a sort of targeted experience in college, they struggled a little bit with that. So that was sort of my first realization, just how targeted and helpful the education here is at Alumnae.
So for me, it really was experience. This was an environment that I thrived in because I got to do things hands-on. I got to learn problem solving. It was okay when we didn't succeed the first time. We would just, kind of pick up and figure out how we asked the questions to go on next. That served me well in my first career doing marine science, where we were picked up quickly by industry because we knew how to use the equipment. We were saying we knew how to work on boats and not get ourselves killed. And they didn't have to teach that, it was just innate because we've been on the boats so much here. And so we were very valuable as field workers at that time. As I moved into my nonprofit career working with young women, it was a lot about, how do you problem solve and how do you think about the struggles that they're having and how do you show them pathways. And so kind of all that learning that I got here helped me to propel other young women to think about these careers.
Okay, now it's up. I think for me, it's back to the community. So some days I have hard hats and steel-toed boots on and I'm in a power plant, and some days I'm in the middle of Boston in a boardroom. And my region is New England, and so because of that, it's like a little microcosm community, right? Just like if you go somewhere else and you come back, people from Maine welcome you back, like it's just a community. It's even more Maine Maritime folks. So a lot of times I'm somewhere and there's always somebody from Maine Maritime. And I'm technically in sales, but I like to refer to it as like account management and relationship management. And so sometimes getting people to talk to you is the first barrier, right? Like people are like, yeah, I don't want to talk to you, just hang up. But when you're like, oh, I went to Maine Maritime, the doors just open and then the conversations become a lot easier and you're less of a stranger, you're part of a family. And so whether it be in a technical field or a commercial field, I think that community translates.
So I left MMA with a little different. I left with mental toughness, worked in an engine room, 130 degrees, 12 hours, no sleep because you just came on a flight the previous night. Not a problem, you know, because at Maine Maritime, you have watches, you know, you might have a test in the morning, but yeah, you got, you know, midnight to 4 o'clock watch, and you just kind of realize that it doesn't matter, I'm gonna have to push through it so I can get what I want in the end. And so I left with that mental toughness. And I also left with accountability, being in the regiment. You have to show up at 7 o'clock, you have to show up for your watch, you have to show up, you have to do your inspections. You are accountable all the time. On the ship, you're accountable to be there for emergency situations. Watch again on the ship, you have to be there. And on a ship in the industry, same thing. You can't just not do your job. And I learned that here. And now that I've gone shoreside, same thing, I'd still watches. If I don't show up, that guy has to stay over until I show up. So that's what I learned here, and I think it's pretty valuable.
What's one thing that you're most proud of during your time at Maine Maritime?
So for me, when I started at Maine Maritime, there were about 25 women on campus out of about a student body of 600. So there weren't a lot of opportunities for women. We definitely stuck together. I was the youngest resident assistant hired. I was the first independent student, I guess we call them non-reg. I know that's not correct now. So that taught me a lot, and I think it paved the way hopefully for others. And I think the other big thing is that we took safety very seriously, and I know in our junior and senior years, the groups of us that were here did a lot of conversations with the president at the time, President Tyler, and campus security about lighting and other things to make the campus feel more safe for women as we were walking around. So hopefully that has continued. And it's nice to see the number of women having grown since I've left.
I guess just being the first IBL graduating class, that was, just to be the first of something like that. And for me, I started as ocean studies, and back to what Kate was saying, is that you get a chance to figure yourself out, and it's not like just because something didn't work out, it's the end of the world. So I got a chance to look around and say, okay, ocean studies wasn't exactly what I thought it was, and I'd like to see what other majors there are. And then faculty and staff, everybody worked with me to figure out how that looks and go into IBL. So I didn't even start in IBL. So I think being able to give yourself some grace and know that you don't have to have, I'm a type A personality all the way. I have everything figured out, just like you were saying about somebody else. And but to know that you don't have to have your entire life planned out. And if you decide to take the right turn instead of the left turn, it's not the end of the world, and to just give yourself that grace to learn.
I'm going to be honest, my favorite day and my proudest moment was passing my third assistant intermediate test. I mean, first try, best day ever.
I think mine was just successfully managing, successfully, meaning my grades were all right. Being a two-sport athlete here, it made it so that I'm sure a bunch of you are athletes in this front row, and you're here because your coaches told you to be here, so thank you. But as you all probably know, it lets you not procrastinate. You can't procrastinate when you gotta go to practice or go to those weekend tournaments, so that's what I'm proud of.
Can you talk a little bit about how well Maine Maritime prepared you for your field?
I use my IBL degree every single day. I've got factories that produce equipment all over the world. I negotiate every single day with somebody on some type of contract, so I'm using international business law. Logistics, I'm talking about air freighting major equipment from Germany to Canada for a wind turbine project. I mean, every single day, if I sit and think about, is this international business and or logistics, I can unequivocally say yes. So I have used it, maybe not in the form that you saw it in your classroom, and maybe I didn't pay attention in certain classes and remember that we did that chapter on whatever, but what I do every single day is absolutely in the IBL realm, for sure.
All the hands-on training definitely helped. I mean, even if I learned about it and didn't do it on the training cruise or cadet shipping, at least I read about it at least, so I had a clue of, you know, how a pump works, and I'll just take it apart even though I've never done it. And they're like, you're a third assistant engineer, you're supposed to know how to do this stuff. So, you know, having the theory behind everything definitely helped, even though I might have not already, you know, took part of that discipline. So it definitely helped, even though during the time I was like, I cannot believe I'm learning this stuff. This is so boring, you know. But in the end, it definitely helped me out in the field. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember back in Libby's class we learned about this. It's been a while, but I do remember this, you know. So every single class, especially in the engineering field, it has come back to haunt me and brought it to attention at least a little bit. And the one thing that I didn't realize I was going to use so much was the technical writing. I didn't think I was going to use that at all in my industry, but I do for resumes, for ordering equipment, doing work orders. I use that tremendously to be able to describe what I accomplished during the day and what needs to be accomplished. And I see other coworkers that did not graduate, they cannot communicate that well to you know, the management team because they really don't have that training. So even the things that you're like, I'll never use this class ever, you really do. So yeah, pay attention.
I think I kind of already covered this in the last answer, but MMA just made my transition into working for the Navy basically seamless. There's a lot that I already understood really well from 4 years of learning all about ship systems.
And for me, again, you know, it was that hands-on experience and being able to go in and look at a CTA or side-scan sonar and say, yeah, I actually know how to use this and put it together. Beyond that, as we got into, we did a lot of cruises and research cruises, and different teams would have to take on some of that work, and so we learned project management early on, how to work with different crews. And what's been most valuable as I've moved into the nonprofit sector has been communication. And so I've been able to establish a lot of relationships with large companies and scientists because I can speak their language and help them see how we can translate what they're doing down to students to get them interested in wanting to explore these topics in more detail.
What's one thing that you wish you had done or participated in at MMA that you didn't? What would you tell your younger self now?
So I don't know if this is,
Did you go first?
I'll say it doesn't apply to everybody here, but definitely I wish I'd done summer maintenance every time because, oh my goodness, you learn so much and then you get those 4 hours off during the school year. Definitely wish I'd done that. And I also wish I took the HVAC test while I did the class. I should have paid $300 and just took the class. Would have, you know, done a resume booster, could use that for applying jobs. But those are the two big things. Other than that, pretty happy.
So I was a PET major, and since leaving school, I discovered that I really love to travel. So I kind of wish that I would have been in the regiment and gone on cruises. So kind of to add on to your test thing, this is like sort of separate from this. But one of my professors, for any of you who are engineers, said to take the FE exam. Professor Cote was the one who said that. Take the FE exam right when you graduate, because it'll be way easier. And I did that and passed it really without studying because of MMA. So if you guys find yourself getting with that spot, then you should just take the exam right away.
There's not much I wish I had done differently. There weren't a lot of options, actually. I mean, there were no women's sports. You could join the sailing team, and it wasn't that good at that point in time. So that wasn't really an option. Some part of me wishes I'd done APO. I never did that. But at the same point, the way we were on campus, it didn't really matter if you were in APO or not. You were still active in those service projects. And I think the biggest thing I learned and all of that was just say yes, and I read Amy Poehler's book not long ago that's titled that, and I realized that's what I'd done throughout my time here and in my career, that even if I was scared, I would do it. And what was great about the OS department was that our professors were doing amazing research, not only during the school year, but also during the summer in particular. And so a lot of us got a lot of great experience by just asking questions and jumping on their teams to help with research in the summertime. I'd always had an interest in marine archaeology, and I got to do that here at Maine Maritime, and never thought that I would do that. So say yes to whatever opportunities come your way.
I think I actually love being an APO, and I'm so glad I did that, so it's a little bit opposite of the question. But what I wish I would have done is I wish I would have relaxed and enjoyed college more. Like, I was so type A, and these are the classes, and I'm going to get all these great grades, and that I didn't necessarily take time to enjoy just being a college kid, because becoming, an adult who's paying bills and student loans and getting married and having kids, like, all that comes really fast, and all those responsibilities come really fast. You're not a college student for a very long time in this grand scheme of things, and I totally wish I could go back to college for another 4 years and be a college kid, not like this old college. So enjoy it, but in moderation.
This is kind of a similar question to maybe how you just answered that, but if there was one piece of advice you could give a student in the audience, or maybe some prospective students who are watching online, what would that one piece of advice be?
I'm sorry. If you are planning on shipping out and you're female, do it. Just even if you do it for 1 year, I highly suggest it. I think it gives you that mental toughness, like I was saying, and it gives you that edge that for shoreside you'll never ever get. But that's if you're doing the shipping out program. I think that really made me better at my job. I learned so much more in those 4 years of shipping out than in the 3 years I've been at my other job shoreside. It's just, you were accountable for so much, you were in charge of so much, and you basically, if you can't do your job, you have to at least find a way to kind of get it done, because there's no other option. While shoreside, you have the internet, you have resources, you can become lazy. So my biggest piece of advice is, if you can ship out, ship out.
So my piece of advice is really to think about what your learning style is. I had never really thought about a small school. I didn't know what to expect in college. My junior year, I was abroad as an exchange student in Germany, so I didn't kind of have that whole experience of going and visiting colleges before I started applying. And I applied here, honestly, because my father told me I was going to apply here, and this was the school I was going to. So once I got here, though, I discovered that I learned best in a small environment where we had a lot of interaction and hands-on. When I worked with other universities, Stanford and Harvard and all of those, I realized that I never would have been a good student in any of those colleges. I just wasted those 4 years. So when you're thinking about college in general, think about what your learning style is and what university or college is going to meet that learning style so that you're successful.
My bit of advice is for current students, and I think this applies to not just women but also men, but to find what you think makes you feel really confident, and do that all the time, because it's going to make everything from how well you perform in school to how well you perform at work to any relationships you have with friends, family. It just makes everything better. So making sure you make your own self-confidence a really top priority, and really that's like a lifelong piece of advice.
I would say get involved, because you won't know if you're good at something or you like something unless you actually try it. So just dive in, just fully immerse yourself and try everything, right? And then figure out what you don't like, because so much of college is not just the coursework, but also learning and growing and the independence from, transitioning to adulthood and all the fun stuff that comes along with that. So I think it's a great place for you to continue to cultivate your own personality and your own interests.
What's one piece of advice you would give male students or your male colleagues about their female peers to make them better classmates, shipmates, colleagues?
So we talked about this over coffee earlier. So when I was in high school in the 90s, they decided that they were going to have all-girl math classes at my high school. And it was the most horrible idea for me individually. And so I kicked and screamed, and finally I had to bring my mom in, kicking and screaming, to say to the principal, like, this is not a good idea. And the reason, for me, the reason is because I thrived off of the competition of the boys around me, right? I wanted to be as good as the guy next to me, right? And so I would say to the men, don't think because there's a girl in your classroom, and I'm sorry, I'm using the word girl. We talked about the word girl. I don't think that because there's a young woman in your classroom that you have to like dumb anything down. And I'm not saying you guys do that, but just be yourselves, be your smart individuals that you are, regardless of your plumbing, right? Your plumbing doesn't do math and science, right? Your brains do, and it doesn't matter if we're male or female. And so don't dumb down your language, your participation, the questions that you're asking because you feel like the girl next to you can't keep up with you. Like, run at your speed so that they can run at their speed, and everybody then becomes, it's a collaborative teamwork approach thing. Don't assume we're stupid because we have different plumbing. Yes.
So one of the things that we talk about a lot with young women is, and with men, is one, you need to listen. And I challenge all the men to take a step back and watch the dynamics that happen when there are few women in the room, and what happens in conversations, and if women are listened to and their ideas are heard. And then, help support them and lift them up as well. If you're in a position of hiring, think about the diversity and the women that are in your C-suites and your leadership positions, so that people have things to aspire to. And I think it's just, one of the things we talk about is that if not everybody is at the table, we can't have innovative solutions. And one of the examples that we often talk about is that when voice recognition first came out in cell phones, it often didn't recognize a female voice because there hadn't been enough women as part of the engineering process. That's happening today with facial recognition software, where it often will not recognize darker complexioned people correctly. And that's because we haven't had the right people at the table to make sure that the solution works for everybody at the table. That's one of the examples.
I think this also applies to everyone, but just treating everyone the same that you want to be treated. That goes from men to women, women to women, men to men. And also just anecdotally, I really never felt at Maine Maritime, and very thankful for this, because in the workplace it's not necessarily the same way, but didn't feel like there really was any difference between myself and my male classmates.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I felt the same. I mean, I've never had an issue. Like, I really couldn't think of a thing that could do different, because they all just treat me like all the guys, which was exactly what I wanted. But in the industry, the one thing that I thought that guys could improve on is if I'm working on something, I have a tool in my hand and I'm trying to do something, and you grab the tool out of my hands, it's not a good day. So never, ever, ever grab a tool out of the female's hand. It's not going to end well. Instead, ask, hey, you got that? Do you need help? That's an appropriate response to if you see your female counterpart struggling to get out, but never grab the tool out of your hand. Because husbands should understand that too.
What's the most important trait or skill that you brought to the workplace that helped you earn the respect of your coworkers?
So Kate kind of mentioned that she got this training at Maine Maritime, and so the answer is similar for me, but the ability to analyze a problem quickly and get to the root cause is probably something that came from MMA, but definitely helps in the workplace.
Yeah, it was problem solving and being able to communicate and meet people where they are with whatever communication you're having, whether it was scientists or funders and how we're funding, or it's students. And so that communication and problem solving piece was really important throughout my career.
For me, I think it's work ethic. And I think that if you list traits of employees, people that you want to work for you, the number one thing, the clear differentiator is the work ethic. You don't necessarily have to be the smartest, most analytical, like, you don't have to know the thing that you're working on, right? You have to have the ability to dive in and say, I'll figure it out, I'm here, I'm not gonna quit, I show up, I'm accountable. The work ethic is the number one thing that I think differentiates and that, clearly it's a key part of the education here.
I was going to say the same exact thing. I wrote down work ethic because, I might not have, been able to figure out the problem right away, but while the other guys quit during their 12-hour shift, I just keep going. I would stop. I'd work through my breaks. I'd work through lunch to get that piece of equipment back running because I didn't want to be the, she couldn't figure it out, girl. I wanted to get the job done. While most guys, they're like, I don't know, so I'm just not going to do it. I did not have that mentality ever. I think that made me a more valuable employee to all my jobs that I've ever had. Work ethic.
What's the one thing you're most proud of since graduating from Maritime?
For me, it's the young women I've been able to impact and show a pathway into science, technology, engineering, and math. I've learned a lot myself, and there are careers that I might have looked at that I never knew existed. And a lot of my work has been done with low-income students, those who are in public housing, those whose parents are incarcerated, those who just don't have access. And so being able to open their eyes that they can go to college and what that pathway is and the ways that they can engage in these fields has been my crowning achievement, I think.
I guess I'll take a non-career, like it's a conventional approach. So I have 2 children of my own, and then I have a stepson as well. So I have 3 teenagers right now, 14, 15, and 17. And being a parent is the hardest, most unpredictable job that you will ever have. And I think the work ethic comes from, you really got to have it then because you can't give up when there's a little person that's depending upon you, or even a teenager that's depending upon you. So I think that, being able to juggle, and I think we have a question about work-life balance, but being able to juggle at times in my life, being a full-time grad student, a full-time all at the same time, grad student, mom, employee, member of the community, it's just juggling everything and doing my best to be successful and contribute to all of those multiple people that are depending upon me is something I'm proud of.
I was going to go the career track that's a little bit boring. So I think, and this is part of MMA, but I started coaching the last 3 years in Philadelphia and got to learn about people who grew up completely differently than I did because I grew up in Maine and like directly translating a lot of the lessons and team bonding kind of stuff that I had to do here with Craig and Katrina. And so that's been really fun and also fun to realize how hard it is to coach and how thankful I am to them for how patient they were with all of us.
I guess my proudest moment was last year during that really cold spell. I got to drive 6 weeks in Vermont. On? Okay, good. Sorry about that. Last year during the cold spell, that polar vortex we were on, and our power plant, all 4 units were on at max load, and I got to run a 630 megawatt steam turbine, first woman ever, in the history of London Station, and it's a 1970s steam turbine. I thought that was pretty badass, It's a lot of power, and we didn't lose, we would have browned out if we didn't have that power on, so it was pretty cool. I was pretty excited about it, I had a couple of mentors telling me, all right, make sure you go the steam is slow, you do everything real slow, so that's forgiving, but it was pretty cool having some guys that have worked at this power plant for 40 plus years, giving me some direction, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna slowly come up online, and it was.
All right, so everyone has their own vision of what their work-life balance should be, and everyone is different. So can you each talk a little bit about how you achieve your personal definition of work-life balance?
All right, so I'm the only one up here, I guess, that has children, which takes the whole work-life balance to a different discussion, I guess. And I guess the way I approach it, I'm not sure, it's like all balls up in the air at once balance. It's not like a perfect balance, and every day is a different thing. And I guess I compartmentalize things to boxes. So there's a box for kids, and each kid has their own box. And then there's a box for work, and each customer has their own box. And there's a box for my husband, and relationships, and friendships, and community stuff. And there's all these boxes that make up our personalities, right, and what we're involved in. And I guess when I'm in that box, I am fully engaged and figuring out what I need to figure out and doing everything I need to do and committed to that box. And then I think everybody in my boxes realizes there are other boxes, and I've kind of explained to my bosses, and I had really great bosses that have really understood this whole juggling dynamic in a male-dominated industry, which I've just been so blessed. And I think just, everybody knows there are other boxes, and they patiently sometimes have to wait while I deal with this other box. And so it's my job, I feel like, is a 24/7 thing. I drive about 1,000 miles a week. I'm all over New England. I'm in hotels. I have an amazing, incredible team. My husband and my son get along great, which makes it easy when I'm on the road. I collaboratively parent with my ex-husband. We have a daughter that has significant disabilities. And we have to collaboratively team everything about her life and her treatment with not just, I don't have the luxury of parenting as 2 or 3 parents. I have to parent by committee. I've got entire teams of people that help provide support for my daughter. And so in that, we have no choice but to be a team and to communicate and to juggle. And literally all balls are up in the air at one time. And I think the key to that is communication and honesty, because I've had to have really hard conversations with bosses over the years as I've, my daughter's had lengthy hospitalizations, and I've had to juggle work and take Family Medical Leave Act and all that stuff. And so I've really had to just be really transparent and honest about the struggles. We all have stuff, right? We all have something. Our families all have something. It's a matter of how transparent, how honest, how collaborative you are with all of the people that are helping you juggle those balls. And I think also you have to really appreciate all of the people that are helping you juggle those balls, because you can't do anything by yourself, right? So I worked for a boss that was a Marine colonel, and he was, I think, pretty influential to me. He always said, whenever you get recognition, you thank the people that got you there, because you did not get there by yourself. Your entire crew, your team, your department, your whoever got you there. You could not have done that by yourself. And that really, impressed upon me that this is a collaborative, life is not one singular person. You can't do it alone. You have to ask for help, and you have to appreciate the people that help you achieve your goals.
So, shipping out as a female is really hard, especially when your husband also ships out, but somehow we've made it work, and we've been together for 10 years. We've been at Maritime, and I just want to let you know, it is definitely a possibility, and we had it awesome. I mean, we had it so we both shipped out for a month, and then we both came back and had vacation for a month, and it was awesome. We did that for 3 solid years. It was great. So I highly suggest it. If you can work it out, it's awesome. And then I transitioned to shoreside because the oil industry tanked, and I was like, I'm out of this, I took the sacrifice of, I'm going to go shoreside because, the money and I wasn't able to have that month-on rotation anymore. So I was like, I'll go shoreside. Found a DuPont schedule, which is you work nights and days, but you only work 14 days out of the month, and right now I'm on my week off, so it's pretty awesome. Every 3 weeks you get a week off. And my husband ships out still, so he's gone right now for a month, but next month he's home for a month, and for 15 days we have vacation. So totally possible, but you have to both sides have to make some sacrifices, because I mean, he's not home every night, so yes, during the snowstorm, guess who's plowing? I am, and if the dishwasher goes, guess who has to rebuild the dishwasher? Me. Like, so it's a give and take thing, and we both make sacrifices. He's also, we were both living up here when we were shipping out, and then 3 years ago, I was like, hey, let's drop everything and move to Yarmouth because I got a job opportunity. And he said, okay. So, I mean, you both have to make those give and take decisions, but in the end, it's been really good for us. But it takes two to tango, But it's definitely doable.
For me, it's one of the hardest lessons I've had to learn over my career. I was not good at it. I was definitely at type A. I burnt myself out with travel and working with a national nonprofit out of New York, and then kind of had to take a step back. And what it taught me was several things. One, you have to, the serenity prayer about, knowing what you can change and letting the other stuff go is very important to me. And that reminds me of, it's not all important. If I don't answer that email right now, it's not the end of the world. And as I became a supervisor, it was also really important to realize how to coach my team. And realize that they might not be doing it the way I would, but as I used to tell my executive director, as long as we're not going to get sued and nobody's going to get hurt, then let's let them go with it and let it also be a learning experience and debrief and things like that. And there's lots of ways to do things and have a positive outcome. Asking for help has also always been a really hard thing. Early on in my career, I had the opportunity to work a 35-hour work week, which was fantastic after being in marine science and doing a lot of field work and doing 60-hour weeks or whatever. And so I've always tried to get back to that. And so with my current job, I work 30 hours a week, and it's a contract basis. And so at 30 hours, I get to say, I'll talk to you next week. And so setting boundaries early is really important because it's really easy for that work to start to creep in. But it's also about being really honest about what is really important and what is okay to hold off a little bit. And it's really hard, I think, for women because we're always trying to prove ourselves, and particularly in male-dominated careers and industries. But that's really important, I think, for everybody to think about.
So I'm lucky enough to have a job where I can work from home sometimes, and I have really flexible hours, so it kind of makes this equation really easy. And I get to travel a lot as well, and so whenever I can, I tack on vacation at the end of any work travel. So I'm lucky enough to have a job that really makes this piece of the puzzle pretty simple.
Great, thank you. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to you. So you can yell the question from your seat, or I can give you a microphone. There's a pretty long cord here, however it works. So turning it over to the audience. The questions, yes, sir. This question was, what's the advice that they would give to the Board of Trustees that are in the audience today?
Well, we briefly heard a little sneak peek of cybersecurity is coming, and I think that's a great idea. I work with utilities, it's a huge concern right now. I think all of us can speak to how cybersecurity impacts our jobs, our employers, our customers, and so I think that's a really great, cool thing that you guys are doing. And I think keeping up to date with those types of technologies, whenever you see something changing in the industry, consider adding or changing a degree that makes sense to keep up with that, to keep it relevant. I think engagement of alumni, I know that Joe Curtis is working on wanting to do the mentoring. I think that's really a cool thing, not only for existing students, but also alumni to be able to come and give back. I think we have a responsibility. We're so blessed in so many ways that we have a responsibility to come back and give something back and to back to who we were 20 years ago, right? And so to give us that opportunity as alumni to engage with the current student population on a kind of one-on-one basis, not just a big alumni banquet thing, but partner us up. I think that's a really beneficial thing. Yeah.
question was, what else should people be looking at when they're offered jobs, other than just the money? What are the important things to consider as you're considering job opportunities?
Well, that was really easy for me. It was work-life balance. Like, I was like, I'm not doing anything but month off, one shift. Like, that's it. And then I also looked into benefits, DuPont schedule, like I said. I have even time at home still, and 401k plans, all that stuff. So, I mean, yeah, it's not all about the money. Also, location. Location's a good thing. But, yeah, it's definitely not all about the money.
I've been at Siemens for 18 years now. I left for like 9 months because I thought, oh, the grass is greener on the other side, right? I basically doubled my income. I got this really cool title, and I thought it was going to be great. Well, when I got there, I figured out that the company and some of its officers weren't necessarily very honest, and the integrity wasn't there, and I was being asked to do things that I didn't think were ethical, and that was huge red flags to me. So it didn't really matter that they were paying me twice as much. The people were like ruthless. Literally, you would walk in and somebody, they would go around the table and introduce themselves, and if you had been there longer than 6 months, you got a round of applause, because they fired people like that. If you didn't conform to whatever they wanted you to do, you were gone. And I had a 2 and a 4-year-old at the time, and I was like, I'm working 16 hours a day on the week that I'm here, that I'm traveling 3 other weeks of the month. This is not sustainable. It's not ethical, it's not sustainable, the money's not worth it. And luckily I was approached by the Marine Colonel I referenced earlier, and he called, he's like, where are you? Why aren't you here working for me? And I'm like, I will come back and work for you. Because I knew it was a family, a community. I've got great benefits. I've got great 401k. I've got, like, the name of Siemens, right? There's 350,000 employees. It's a big organization. But honestly, my department acts like a family. We're very collaborative. I can call somebody in Kansas City and ask for help with a customer thing. And so I think looking at the community, not just the dollar figure, right? And the work-life balance, really understanding the position rather than jumping in and saying, oh, well, I'm going to make all this much more money.
Understanding that compensation isn't just your salary, it's all the other pieces. At the time I was here as a student, if you were an independent student, you didn't go to professional development classes. And so I remember getting my first job offer going, I have no idea what I'm looking at and if it's good or not. And running down to Ernie LaBelle at the time and saying, what am I looking at? And so understanding that and asking for help on those things, and I think it's done more in classes now, which I think is another legacy our classes said is important, because we don't get that anywhere. For me, it's also been a lot about culture and mission. And so I've always worked for companies and organizations where I was strongly tied to what the culture was of the organization and what the mission was and what they were trying to accomplish. And I've also walked away from places or tried to change things because not feeling that things were necessarily ethical or done in the way that I would want to, or, your reputation is everything in industry. And people will continue to work with you when they feel like they can trust you and they can talk to you. And so just being level with folks and being truthful, I've found to be really important throughout my career. And so maintaining that reputation as I move job to job. In the field that I'm in with informal education and women in STEM is actually pretty small. And so we are often working with one another as we move from job to job. So thinking about what is really important to you in a job, with your work team, what your work hours are all really important things to think about, not just what the dollar number is.
I would say along the lines of culture, looking for an organization that has a growth mindset. So up until this point in your lives, if you're current students, everything has been about learning, right? You've been in middle school, high school, college, you're learning. And once you graduate and go start your first job, it's the first time that you have to figure that out on your own, and you're not being forced to learn anymore. And I personally really love to learn, and so I think finding an organization that's also trying to learn and grow on their own separately and then individually supports their employees in their growth and learning is really important.
What's your favorite book? What's your favorite book?
We had a conversation about this over coffee too. And I don't know what my favorite book is because I read so much technical stuff all day that that's the last thing on my mind at night. And so I, unfortunately, since college, have not done a ton of reading.
I feel very unqualified to answer. I don't have time to read. I haven't read anything for pleasure since Babysitters Club in like middle school and high school. Once I got to textbooks, like Kate was saying, like there's so many words at work that are all technical in nature that I just need a break from the language when I get home. Like I can't focus on a book; it's not moving fast enough for me. So I've been downloading podcasts to listen to while I drive. I don't have a book because I can't.
What's your favorite book, TV show, or podcast?
He's the queen of podcasts, we learned.
I'll just stick to book. My favorite book is a book that I read in the last couple of years called At Home in the World, and it's about a family that picks up with 3 kids under the age of 7, I think, and spends a year traveling, and it's about their life, trying to make their kids go to school and dealing with everything that you would deal with at home, like going to the dentist and stuff like that abroad, and like all the little lessons that they learned from it, and it made me inspired.
Being on a ship all full of guys, I really like really sappy, like lovey series like the Twilight series was awesome because it was just like totally out of the norm, not technical, not mainly like not football, not golf, not hunting. Really girly stuff was the best. And Harry Potter, all that, I could read all that all the time, but yeah, just girly stuff.
Other questions? Anything that we haven't asked you that you think, really would have liked to answer this question, but they haven't asked it yet?
Where do you want to travel in the world that you haven't been yet?
Really, it's too long to list. Like Bali or somewhere with a beach and warm, because it's February in Maine.
I've been super fortunate over the last several years to do a lot of traveling, road trip traveling around the country. And there's still a lot more of this country I'd like to see. You know, we live in a beautiful place and been trying to do all the national parks here in the lower 48. And so I would love to get a teardrop camper and just go camp and work wherever I can for 2 years and explore the country.
Yes, please.
What makes you want to do okay? And then what are your goals for the future?
What made you want to do the panel, and what are you looking forward to as your career advances?
You know, for me, doing the panel, you know, kind of like what Linette said, is that it's about giving back and it's about sharing our experiences, and that just because you take, you know, marine science, power engineering, or, you know, international business and logistics, you know, the path is going to be varied. It's taking all those skills along the way. And so, you know, sharing that with people, that just because that's the major you're in doesn't mean it's not going to change by the time you get to the end of your career. But what I'm doing now, I never imagined I would be doing. I thought I'd be doing research for a long time, you know, and it turned out that wasn't in the cards for me. What do I want to be doing in 5 years? Still doing work nationally to influence getting more youth into STEM careers, because we currently are in a major shortage where we won't be able to fill about a third. You won't be able to fill about a third of the positions with students, men and women, who are currently taking STEM courses, and so that's a huge issue as far as innovation and national security goes. So still doing this advocacy work and working with people, but also living in Maine, somewhere near the coast, and being able to go kayaking every day at lunch would be fantastic.
Came back, my motivation for doing the panel, I mean, it's similar to what she said, to give back, and also I love being back here, it brings back so many memories. And then in my career, I think moving forward, I'm really looking forward to figuring out an organization that aligns with some of the things that I've more recently realized that I'm interested in, and they sort of align with what your work is in the STEM field and getting young women, letting them see that they have opportunities. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
I wanted to do the panel not only to answer everybody's questions here, right, to look back and give you the benefit of my 20 years since I left MMA. But one of my friends was on the panel last year, so as alumni, you know, keeping in touch with other people and making each other aware of alumni opportunities to give back. So I was happy that she reached out to me. What I'm looking forward to doing, I guess, like, it's kind of been a theme, but life kind of throws at you all kinds of stuff that you never really thought, like, you can't plan for this. So I guess I'm just excited to see what life throws at me, right, and how my little boxes all line up and the balls all get juggled the right way to, you know, have a successful career. I'm going to retire in Maine, and I'm going to kayak at Linette. You can come with me. Yeah. So, yeah.
I decided to come because I cannot wear a Maine Maritime sweatshirt at like a gas station in Portland. I'm like, hey, do you know so-and-so? Oh, I went there in 99. You know, it's just, everybody knows you. I honestly believe I got hired because my resume said Maine Maritime, because the entire office is Maine Maritime. I mean, it's such a huge community. You know, just like, oh, you went to Maine Maritime? Oh, you've had these teachers, you've had these classes, we know what you're made of. So, yeah, we know you're going to show up for work. So I feel like, yeah, you gotta give back a little bit. And I also think for the few women that, you know, go to Maine Maritime and the few women in this industry, it's really nice to have someone to look up to, because I knew nothing about this industry at all. So, I mean, my husband gave me a little insight, but it's a little bit different being a female, you know, so I feel like I want to be there if someone has questions or wants connections, you know. We basically had to make our own route for the most part. What I see for my future, I want to continue to operate. I don't know if it'll be at Wyman. I mean, Wyman's pretty old. The oldest piece of equipment is 1956, and then the newest piece of equipment is 1979. So it's a little past its prime. I'm hoping to operate in another power plant or do something along those lines for a while, and then we'll see where the future takes me, because I'm still pretty new at this. And that's really it.
So the question was, in my work to encourage more women into STEM, kind of how have we gone about that? So a lot of it has just been giving exposure, because a lot of the students I've worked with in a number of my careers, they just, like, they'd never been to Brown University, like they'd never been outside of their housing development and kind of known what the opportunities were. And so just giving them the experience to explore different things and discover what they had an interest in. You know, I'll never forget this young girl who came running up to me after doing a program at Brown. It was about space science, and there was a neuroscientist involved, and she was like wide-eyed with the ideas of what she could do. And then having another student, you know, who, when she thought she couldn't afford to come to Brown, say, no, I came from a similar background, and this is how I got here, and there's this thing called scholarships, and like kids just not knowing about that. The other thing that has been really important in the work I've done is that near-peer relationship. And so getting girls to talk with other girls that are younger than them, what their experiences have been, and sharing what that journey has been. One of the big things with NCWIT that we work with right now is we have a community of women. Once they have received a high school recognition of their interest in computer science, or they're in college, and once you guys get your cybersecurity, I expect to see Maine Maritime as one of our academic alliance members. Giving them a place to join together and talk about things, particularly where, you know, the internet's been great with this, where rural students often don't have access to mentors or to the information, or even to some of the classes. We see these young women teaching one another, talking about how they chose careers. They actually have an entire list of what companies should be offering as their starting offers, that they've gathered from their own experiences, so that women go in armed to negotiate for what they should be paid. And so those, I think, are all really important things, but a lot of it is just giving exposure and supporting them and teaching their parents who may not know how to support their daughter's interest or their son's interest even for that matter at this point in time. How do they give them those experiences and how do they ask them questions? They don't have to know what the answers are, they just have to be interested. And that's really important. In the last few years, a lot of my work is also focused just on basic STEM literacy. You can't be a productive citizen in this country or in the world without having that basic understanding of how do I receive information, how do I know what's good, how do I make that decision. It's part of our voting, it's part of our everyday lives, it's part of every career coming up. And so they need to at least have that basic literacy to understand what the future holds and be part of those conversations.
Any other questions?
I would use all the really cool equipment that the volleyball team has now.
You still can.
I guess for me, I have a lot of questions. I want to hear what it's like for women being here now because it has changed. I mean, I've been out for 20-something years as well. Maine Maritime has changed significantly. There's a lot more opportunities, and so I think that's hard, but I think it goes back to just, say yes, soak it all in, ask the questions, jump on board and say, I want to check that out. Take advantage of being in a small school with professors who are not, stuck in research and you're not working with TAs and all, but you can talk to them directly about their careers and their interests, soak all of that up while you're here.
I guess Kate and I are really out of the loop on what it is to be at Maine Maritime in 2019, right? Because it's been 20, 22 years. So we should be asking you guys the question about your experience because I feel like there are things that have changed. Kate reminded me that when she first got here, she was one of a few women that lived in what was affectionately referred to as the hen house. Do y'all live in anywhere that is called the hen house because you're females? Probably not. The language has changed. I don't know. Maybe you still do. I don't know. I just feel like the language has changed, and so things that have changed in 20 years, we would probably be blown away if we sat down. Maybe we will sit down at dinner time with some of the young women here. I don't know, but to ask the questions of what is your experience? Because like Kate alluded to, when we were here, there were no lights in the parking lot. I mean, just basic safety things that you take for granted. They weren't here, so we need to figure out what is here. The mess deck is amazing, by the way.
This isn't school related, but there's so much stuff to do in Castine, Witherly Woods. You guys are really close to Acadia, all that stuff. I didn't do any of that, and now that I'm so far away, Acadia was so close, and I hear people in Philadelphia talking about, oh, I'm going to Bar Harbor and we're going on vacation, and I am sad that I didn't go spend time in places like that while being so close.
And exploring the history here. I mean, Castine and this area is rich in history. We were very fortunate when we were here anyway, that Dr. Dean Mayhew was still with us and world-renowned maritime historian. I got to work with him on the archaeology project I did. He was like your favorite grandfather, telling you great stories, but it also put you to sleep in his class. But amazing wealth of knowledge, and a lot of those signs are around here. So explore the town. Get to know some Italians, work around. One of the things that we love doing is there was a company that started doing fresh pasta here, and you could bring your own bottle of wine, and so we would, as an OS department, we would go over to the church and we would have the pasta nights, which were also fundraisers for different organizations here at the time, and so it was a way for us to, engage with the town around us.
It was only 8 years ago that I graduated, so it's pretty much the same, I'm pretty sure. So I don't really have anything different. So, but I do remember we had to do the death. Did you guys have to do the death march in the regiment where you read every single sign in Castine? No. Yes. No. Yeah, you have to. And it's hot. It's September. You're wearing your blues. You're miserable, and you're like, oh, we get to learn and march and exercise, and you're sweating. So we got to do that.
I was literally at a dinner last night. I was one of 2 females in the room, and there were 20 male engineers, not a very diverse population. And I tried to excuse myself politely that I had to drive all the way up to, I had a long drive. They're like, oh, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Castine, Maine. And they're like, oh, have you ever been there? And I said, yes. I got my undergrad from Maine Maritime. And literally, somebody said they let girls go there. And I'm like, wow, it's 2019. So yeah, I still look around, even in this very large, huge organization that I'm in, it's still a very male-dominated industry. I routinely, sometimes I'm such an analytical mind that I look around and I'll do little data analysis of how many men versus women are in the room, and routinely, I'm the only woman in the room. There might be one other. So at max, there's 10% women in the room when I'm where I am. So it really depends, I think, on, there's a generational gap. Like I said, sometimes I'm in power plants and sometimes I'm in boardrooms. And when I'm out in power plants, I feel like if the person I'm talking to is 45 or older, I'm a girl in a power plant, and that's the extent of my existence, right? If they're under 45, then I'm a professional in the power industry, and they can have a conversation with me. So I think that there's a lot of work still being done. And of course, you can't lump everybody into those situations, right? But I do think that we're still very much in a male-dominated industry. There are still generational things that need to grow through for the culture to change. But the more women who are going into these industries, who are articulate and educated and can have the conversations, and Katie, you said when you have people that you like to basically show them how. I'll let her tell her story, but she takes a different approach. So yeah, there is still resistance. There's still a lot of stereotyping of women in our male-dominated fields, and I'm sure even the shipping industry is probably a whole nother kettle of fish, right? So yeah, you're gonna meet resistance, but I think if you're confident, you know your own voice, you know your own strengths, and you do those things, like I said, where you appreciate the people who are making you successful and in turn make them successful, it doesn't matter what your plumbing is.
Don't apologize for your leadership. Be confident in it, but also learn to lead from behind, where you're lifting your entire team up so they all have ownership. And I think that makes a good leader no matter who you are, and you'll be respected for it. So, unfortunately, I've actually worked mostly in all-women organizations, which, to be honest, it's the same issue sometimes. I don't think it's a little bit different when it's the male dynamic, but it's the same types of issues regardless.
I was just going to say, going back to focusing on being confident and also competent in your job, and to flip the switch a little, you can, if you do see resistance or experience it or are anticipating it, you can turn that into a little bit of a lesson and be driven to be even more confident than maybe you would have been before, and know that perhaps if you're the only woman in a room, that you're going to automatically get more attention than everyone else in the room just because you look different. So it doesn't always have to be a negative perspective, I think, on that dynamic.
Other questions from the audience?
Oh, I got one more little comment on that, because I experienced that pretty heavily, being the only female on a ship. And my coworker, the other third assistant engineer, that was my opposite, he was this 65-year-old Filipino that could barely speak English, and he called me the woman behind my back. And of course, you hear the chatter about what they think of you. My biggest advice is, even though they might not want to do it and they'll grumble about it, as long as you're competent, like you were saying, in your job, they really can't hate you if you're doing your job, And if they bring you down and they say, well, you're not doing it, just continue doing your job. Don't get wrapped up in the drama. Just keep plugging away. They're gonna like you, but if you do your job.
Any other questions? All right. Great, well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. We have 4 students who are going to join our panelists for dinner with the Board of Trustees, so we could have one final round of applause for our guests. And our two guest speakers. Thank you very much. Have a great day. To all the students, if we don't see you again, have a safe and happy spring break.